Hi everyone, Chris from Stone Age Gamer here, and welcome back to Stone Age Countdown. Now, I love retro video games. I mean, obviously, I love playing them on their original hardware or an original arcade cabinet or whatever, but emulation has and always will have an important part to play in, well, playing classic video games. Now, a lot of modern emulation techniques have incorporated all kinds of fancy new modifications that, while the originals are still fantastic, these new modifications change up the games in really interesting ways, and I just love seeing what people are able to do with classic games today. Everything from colorizing classics to making things run smoother, I just love seeing all of it. So here are my personal top 5 favorite modern modifications for retro video games.
Number 5. Colorized Classics. Video games being in full color has never been much of a novelty. Even in the Atari 2600 days, games were by default programmed in color. However, there were a number of handheld platforms for decades that stuck with monochromatic screens in favor of cutting costs. The WonderSwan, the Neo Geo Pocket, the Virtual Boy, and of course the mighty Game Boy itself all had monochrome screens. This means a ton of absolute classics are stuck in black and white, or in the Virtual Boy's case, black and red. Thankfully, there are a number of modders out there bringing color to these classic worlds in wonderful ways. This isn't wholly limited to homebrew devs, as we've seen stuff like Link's Awakening DX on Game Boy Color and Capcom's almost released Mega Man Mania, but by and large, the best of these efforts have been done by independent developers. The work these fine folks have put into making some of the coolest black and white games look like new is a constant source of amazement to me, and I'm always happy to see more of it. Number 4. Remakes. Every system has its defining games. Sometimes they're good, and other times not so much. It's in these cases that sometimes legendary names get a bad reputation. Would anyone know what a CDI was without those awful Zelda games? How many people love touting that a terrible version of Pac-Man crashed the US game industry? It didn't. How did Pitfall go from groundbreaking to, well, this? Fortunately for us all, there are hardworking individuals out there righting the wrongs of the past. From Donkey Kong VCS to this actually playable version of Link Faces of Evil, updated versions of some of gaming's most famous missed opportunities are a fascinating way to see an alternate reality where things worked out the way they should have. Number 3. Clearing those technical hurdles. Many classic games, especially on the Super NES and NES, suffered from slowdown. For a while, direct ports and basic emulation didn't really do much to tackle this issue, but in the last few years, some major strides have been made in terms of making some of our favorite classics more playable while maintaining authenticity. This has been accomplished to remarkable degrees by both official and unofficial channels. Take the recent Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Cowabunga collection from Digital Eclipse. These games look and play better than ever with the option to remove not only slowdown, but screen flicker as well. Or how about Pilot Wing 64 running at 60 frames per second in high resolution on Nintendo Switch Online? On the homebrew front, how about the amazing efforts to make Konami's SNES classics run beautifully? Contra 3 The Alien Wars with no slowdown? Yes, please. And probably the most famous example, Gradius 3's Bubble Area, running on actual SNES hardware, silky smooth? Amazing. And oh, HD Mode 7, how crazy is that stuff? I don't know what they'll come up with next, but I can't wait. Number 2. Make mine widescreen. I don't know why this one tickles me so much, but it absolutely does. One of the things I hate most in this world is when games offer a stretched perspective to make it quote-unquote fit a modern screen. Aspect ratio distortion drives me bananas, so when I see examples of retro games actually being remade to support true widescreen, I take notice, and I absolutely love it. And again, this is being embraced by both official and unofficial channels. Sega recently released real widescreen versions of all their classic Sonic games on home consoles. Square even added ultra widescreen support to Chrono Trigger, everywhere but home consoles for some reason, but that's a rant for another day. Of course Nintendo themselves haven't dabbled in this, but the fan community is out there doing what Nintendo don't with gorgeous widescreen versions of stuff like Super Mario World, Super Metroid, F-Zero, and more. Absolutely wonderful. Number 1. Be kind, rewind. If there's one singular trend in modern takes on retro games that makes me happy, it's the rewind function. Save states have been around for ages, and they're great, but rewind, well, that's a whole other ballgame. I think the first time I played a game with this function was Prince of Persia: Sands of Time, but that was a new game built around that mechanic. I loved it though, because it allowed me to keep practicing specific moments until I got them right without needing the foresight to create a new save state. Now, you see rewind on just about every retro compilation out there, and I could not be happier. I did my time with absurdly difficult games when I was a kid. I don't need to prove anything to anyone, darn it. So when I play through Ninja Gaiden, or Mega Man 1, or Comic Zone, or the NES Ninja Turtles, I abuse the ever-loving garbage out of that rewind button, and I could not care less. But what makes it cooler than just negating difficulty, it also allows me to see things in retro games I always missed out on. Alternate paths in games like Castlevania Dracula X that I never took the time to take. Practicing strategies on a punch-by-punch basis in Punch-Out. Stuff like that is so easy to do with Rewind, and it adds a layer of discovery to these old games that I've played a bajillion times that I just love to death. Rewind is king, and I want more of it.
So of course, playing games in their original formats, and emulating with 100% authenticity, slowdown, warts and all, that stuff is very, very important. But I also just love seeing what people can do to retro games to make them technically better. I mean, Super Pitfall was a disaster. That new version of Super Pitfall, it took that original game and fixed it. I love seeing that kind of stuff. I love playing Pilot Wing 64 on my Switch with super smooth graphics and 60 frames per second. It's nuts to me to see that stuff. It's just breathing new life into retro games, and I love that no matter how you're doing it. Anyway, thanks for watching, everybody. If you liked what you saw here today, please follow, comment, like, subscribe, share this video around, and sound off in the comments. Let me know what kind of retro modifications you love seeing done to the classic games. I mean, did seeing Gradius run with no slowdown blow your mind as much as it did mine? What kind of stuff am I missing? What other mods are out there in the world that I've just never even seen or heard of before? I love hearing this kind of stuff. Thanks again for watching, everybody. On behalf of all of us here at Stone Age Gamer, keep playing games.
Oh, somebody would make a full color version of this game.